these people are going to die, or there's that thing, especially with us with kids, that there's the thing that looks like Kawasaki syndrome. This could be so great that it's just not worth it to play. And so, anyway, the point being, if Little League is having trouble covering this insurance-wise, I don't think that the professionals have the insurance thing figured out either. The best they're going to get is, we know what we're going to cover, we know when we see it, do what you're going to do. Now, minimally, the one thing that they should take away from that is that everybody knows that if you don't do all the preventative things that you could be doing, you're going to be liable. So if they're properly worried about the insurance issue, they should take every proper precaution. But that precaution includes enforcing rules of behavior. You know, it's like if I go to Walmart and they have the signs on the ground that say 6 feet apart and this aisle goes this one way, but if people are going the other way, which they are, or standing 2 feet behind me when I'm looking at the lunch meat, if nobody is going up to these people and separating it, if they're doing nothing to police these things, it's as if they don't exist. So that's my first half hour. Just me talking about what's going on there. I did want to get to the Major League Baseball draft. I want to check my notes real quick. Oh, a 50-game season before we get to the draft. The questions that came up were, should FAB be adjusted? Should position eligibility be adjusted? And I was going to talk this on Kevin's show. Kevin had a great show on Tuesday night, and then he had one of the worst shows he's ever had on Wednesday because he brought me on, and we had such grand technical difficulties that it's basically 40 minutes of us going, do you hear me? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? But we were going to talk about this, and I know he said what he said. The reason, he asked about position eligibility, I asked about FAB. FAB doesn't really matter if you're in a redraft league. This is mostly for leagues where I think it has a small modicum of a thing in a redraft league, and because one of the purposes of FAB is to create some kind of physical limitation to every team to keep them from just picking up anybody that they want as long as they want. And if you're going to have a $1,000 FAB, which normally would cover a 22-week FAB season, and now it's going to be a 7-week FAB season, people are going to be running amok on the amount of money there, but everybody's in the same boat. It's just a little bit crazy that way. Live with it for a year. It's better to not shake things up. Whenever you change a rule, whenever you change a rule, even if you change a rule for the better, there's a chance that somebody is going to be miffed by it. And it's probably not worth it. For the year you're going to have fantasy-wise this year, it's not worth making anybody sad, making anybody angry. So, but the FAB makes a big difference in dynasty leagues because oftentimes the FAB is tied to what the keeper value is. In my dynasty league, most often it's dollar for dollar. I know in some leagues it's anybody that's picked off of FAB waivers is $10. In my league, I don't like the dollar for dollar because you sometimes get those situations where at the end a team bids like $44 for somebody with a month to go because they have too much money left over. And what the hell? So in my league, we play. If you pick up a guy in FAB for $10 or less, he comes back at $10. $10 to $25 comes back at $15. If it's 25 and over, he comes back at $20. And it's going to make a difference on the thing because if we do $100 FABs, there's a lot of money going to be chasing that in a very short period of time, and because so many strange things are going to happen this year with expanded rosters and who knows who doesn't play, who all of a sudden becomes important. There's going to be a lot of action on the waiver wire. I don't think that you can cut the waiver wire at a prorated business. If we went from 162 games to 50 games on a $100 FAB budget, you're looking at about $31 is what you should give somebody. And I think that is far too low. But I think that cutting the FAB in half is probably a good idea. And I think it's even true for the redraft leagues. As far as position eligibility goes, I don't really worry too much about this because I like Yahoo. And I think Yahoo's position eligibility makes the most sense. Of course, I trace my history in fantasy baseball back to the original sources, the books, the rotisserie books. And in that, they really didn't have it. If you played one game at one position, you could play it. And so I kind of like Yahoo's. If a guy plays 10 games at it, he's got that eligibility. And if you play 5 games in the season, you get the eligibility. And they actually differentiate starting and playing versus coming in a shift or something, for one batter. You have to have 10 starts or 5 starts or 10 games played. So I would imagine that if you're playing on one of those other things, I can't imagine playing in a situation where it takes 20 games to get position eligibility. If the Rangers say that Nick Sulik is their third baseman, right, then everybody in the world knows he's their third baseman except for the website. I don't know why you have to wait basically an entire month to play the guy at the position that everyone knows that he's at. Now, at the same time, I really wasn't a big fan of the one game thing either. But the truth is, the point of the game is to be fun, and if you're doing all this kind of garbagey stuff, like to make it harder and harder for things to go on, why do it? I say if you're going to err on the option of playability, and playability is a more lenient position eligibility. I would assume that the leagues that are tougher on eligibility will give you the option to make them lighter, and I think 5 games is what the standard should be. The key to any of these things, though, is to lay down the rule before the games start, because anybody can adapt to anything as long as they have a fair and even playing field, and that's to keep the playing field even. You could create any kind of stupid rule you want, and I've played in some leagues with some stupid rules, but as long as everybody knows the stupid rule beforehand, it's fair-ish, fair enough. Anyway, on to the draft. I look at the Major League Baseball draft more from a dynasty standpoint than from a fan of the game standpoint. And so the first thing you have to look at is, what is your overall drafting strategy? And so I have to say at first, when I draft to consistently be a good team. I don't like to be bad team for a while, good team for a while. I think that you can win every week. You can be competitive every year and still have a good farm team, and I've proven it once I figured it out. So I've been doing it for about 16 years. And so I usually classify that there's people. The way I go into the draft, I classify people. The way I go into my dynasty team is I want some people I want about a third of my guys to be ready to go in the next 18 months. I don't mind if a third of my guys aren't going to be ready for 3 or 4 years. And then I want a third of my guys to be somewhere in between. And so when you go into the Major League draft, when you draft from this grouping, historically we draft a lot of college players because they're closer to playing. The other thing you need to know, and so that's why these are important, because these are all college players. The other thing you need to know is when you're drafting players to make your dynasty team better, it's pretty rare that you're going to get. It's pretty rare that you're going to get to the. It's pretty rare that you're going to get to the. You're going to make the right pick on a player. More of the picks you guys pick from minor league are going to be bad guys than they are going to be good guys, and so. George Hedgeman showed up in the thing, and I just lost all train of thought. So, that's what it is. So, when I'm drafting, I really am thinking that most of the guys I'm drafting, I'm thinking of what is their trade value. That's the most important thing to me. I want to draft the guys that I think have the juice. And those are the guys that I want in the draft. This year's draft is tough that way because we didn't see these guys play. And there's not many people that have the juice. Obviously the first pick in the draft, Spencer Torkelson, no relation to Peter Torkelson, Peter Tork of the Monkees. He's got the juice. He's somebody you could trade for something. Austin Martin, even though he fell, is somebody you could trade for something. Asa Lacy, the first pitcher off the board, is somebody you could trade for somebody. And so those are the guys that I'd be looking at first in the draft. Now, if your team's good, you might not have the early enough picks to get those sort of guys, and that's life. The second group of people that I look at for is people in the draft that can be serviceably good real fast. And, I missed one guy with the juice, Nick Bitsko. I think he's got the juice too. He's the guy that got pushed up a year in the draft, and he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Rays. And Tampa Bay Rays are notoriously good at drafting, except for Tim Beckham. George's out there. Should I throw out a trivia question just for George? Let's see what I got here. Let's throw this one out here. As you know, I've been doing this trivia where I give you a set of 3 things that are an answer to a question. You have to figure out what that question is and give me the next in that sequence. This is a kind of a trickier one, just for George. The first is Rick Russell, Tony Pena. The second is Brett Saberhagen, Bob Boone. The third is Kenny Rogers, Ivan Rodriguez. It's groups of people. But you should be able to figure out what the 2 names are that would go forth. Anyway, the players that I think that are good in this draft that I would look at, that may not be guys that have been mentioned before, is I like Reed Detmer's pitching in Los Angeles. I think they need pitching. I think he's got 4 good pitches. He could be pretty much out of the gate everything that you pretty much expect out of Griffin Canning. I'm not talking about a world beater here, but a solid all-around pitcher. George answers Bill Hand and Randy Hundley. That's not the right answer. I will give this hint that Rick Russell, Tony Pena, Brett Saberhagen, Bob Boone, Kenny Rogers, Evan Rodriguez. This is going chronologically forward. Rick Russell, Tony Pena are the oldest one in this group. Kenny Rogers, Rodriguez is the newest. Steve Blass and Manny Sanguillen. That is cute. I wish I had more than one person guessing, because then I would, not feel compelled to just give them the answer. So the second group. So I like him as a pitcher. The 2 other guys that don't come up as often in this people's name is the outfielder of Colorado, Zach Veen, who played here at Spruce Creek in Orange Park, Florida, where my brother lived and taught for a while. I think that's a guy. I mean, you worry being in Colorado that they jerk people around a little more than you'd like. But he's and the other name that I really like, and the guy that I would probably target personally, Austin Martin first. But my second pick would be Nick Gonzalez of the Pirates. One thing I like looking at when I look at these the draft is them actually playing. And Nick Gonzalez played in the Cape Cod League last year, and the importance of the Cape Cod League is that they actually use wooden bats. They use wooden bats, and in the Cape Cod League, Nick Gonzalez batted .351 to lead the league. He had 7 home runs, which was behind the leader who had 9, and he had 14 doubles. So he's a guy that I would pick up. Here, I'm gonna give you the question, George. These are batteries that have won the Golden Glove simultaneously. Rick Russell, Tony Pena did it. Brett Saberhagen, Bob Boone did it. Kenny Rogers did it. It's been done 2 other times by the same pitcher-catcher combination, and that's the answer to the 4th part of that. There were picks I didn't like. I didn't like Patrick Bailey of the Giants. Why are the Giants picking 2 catchers? I know it's been beat to death. I didn't like Emerson Hancock going to Seattle. I thought he was the worst of the 2 pitchers for Georgia. Cole Wilcox went like the 3rd round, but that's kind of strange. I really don't like Max Meyer of Miami. He's a guy that there's serious questions of whether he's going to remain as a starting pitcher. He's got electric stuff. He hit 100, 102 miles an hour, but he doesn't have much depth of pitching. And it wasn't like they just did this 3 or 4 years ago. In 2016, they drafted Tyler Kolek, who was a guy with electric stuff, but only had a pitch and a half. And the guess was Zach Greinke and Martin Maldonado. No, that's not correct. It was in the National League that this happened. Well, yeah, I guess Zach Greinke is probably National League. Emerson, Tyler Kolek is having trouble making it as he was like a 2nd pick overall. He's having trouble making it because he's this kind of thing. And the Marlins have this track record. Now, it's unfair to Max Meyer to say that he's going to be the next Tyler Kolek, especially because they're 2 different people, and because he's in Miami, and they have new management there.